Just stop it. The run-of-the-mill, cheesy, humdrum bullshit status quo just tires me out. What fascinates me are the industry disruptors, the superhuman frontiersmen or women who go through hell to achieve their goals. Join me as we meet and learn from those mavericks, rebels, and business leaders that aren't afraid to piss off the establishment in order to make radical change for good. Sponsored by Johto PR, the disruptive anti-PR firm that murders your competition with cinder blocks and cyanide. This is Disruption Interruption. Welcome back, everybody, to Disruption Interruption. I'm your host, KJ, and we're here today to talk to another industry leader that has steered off the lame, tired path of the status quo. All right, let's talk about the biggest, I don't know, maybe a lie, white lie in the financial world. It's that nobody saw it coming. Whether it's the 2008 crash or the Silicon Valley bank collapse, the so-called experts line up to tell us that these were quote-unquote black swan events. Unpredictable, unforeseeable, just one of those things. Honestly, I don't think our guest believes that at all. The warning signs many times are screaming, but the industry was using a 1990s ruler to measure a 21st century storm.
Exactly.
Most banks are still running a basic likelihood versus impact matrix to manage risk. It's like trying to predict a hurricane with a wet finger in the wind. Reactive, slow, and exactly why some banks keep failing. My guest today is here to tell us that the financial sector and the status quo of risk management is dead. There's a new paradigm. He's a doctor, a professor, and a 30-year veteran of financial services. His tech has back-tested past failures, including the 2008 and SVB, with an 89% confidence rate. He's flipping the fear of AI narrative on its head and turning risk intelligence from a boring complex checkbox into a predictive engine that saves institutions and, let's face it, people's livelihoods before it flatlines. Please welcome the founder and chief risk strategist of FFERM Technologies, Dr. Jeffrey Edwards.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
So,
is such an interesting topic, right? I want to
for
know
me, it
before we
is.
get
It's
going
great.
in it, because there's so much to talk about, but what has driven you, Dr. Jeffrey,
Hmm.
like towards disruptive innovation personally?
Really, it's been my curiosity. It's been the curiosity that things can get better, that I can kind of help to change things a little bit, and the curiosity around what's broken can be fixed most of the time. And if there isn't a solution, then it's because we're maybe in the wrong time and the wrong place, and maybe asking the wrong questions also.
You know, that's really astute that you said that. Wrong time. I find a lot of our innovators and disruptors are ahead of their time.
Yes.
Have you ever
I've
felt
I've
like that?
I have. I felt a little like that. Steve Jobs, I look at him and see what he's done or what he did with Apple and all the companies that he was associated with. As far as ahead of for me, I feel like I kind of see things a little differently than other people. I won't say I'm ahead of my time. I just see things just slightly differently.
Yes. Well, and that comes from asking those questions, right? You
Yes,
see things differently and you ask the questions. So let's boil this down here.
sure.
What's been the status quo in your neck of your industry? What that has not been workable?
Well, you said it earlier, likelihood and impact. Those two concepts, they came from 1984 from the Department of Defense. And what they did is really focus this paradigm or this methodology on seeing how weapon systems may fail. And so fast forward to 2026, and you're still doing the same thing, the same methodology, just a little slightly bit different, but the same methodology. And the question that you have to ask yourself is it fit for purpose? Was it really purpose for financial services? Is there a mechanism that is in place now that shouldn't be in place? And asking those questions and seeing if the technology and the methodology is transferable from one area to the next.
What are the questions that you've been doing this, let me get this right. Well, you've been doing something for 30 years, you've been doing something for 20 years. Tell our audience.
Yes,
Yes.
sure.
I get it backwards.
I have 30 plus years of financial services experience. I started very young and I migrated within the financial services space to different areas. I started in technology. Previous to going into financial services, I had 10 years of technology experience. So when I stayed in technology at financial services, I added another 10 years, which came 20 years of technology experience. Then I decided to migrate to another area. And that area was risk management. I started in what they call the third line of defense, which would be audit. I
Mm.
migrated to the second line of defense, which would be risk management and the other areas that support risk management. And then finally, the first line of defense, which is the business.
Got it. So you're doing that for 30 years. And then 20 of those 30 years, you were doing what?
Risk management's focused.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was operational risk, credit risk, market risk, third party risk management, you name it. I have touched that risk in some way, shape, or form.
Had a natural curiosity towards that, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show my geekiness, but in 2001, a manager asked me to read a regulation. So I said, sure, why not? They wanted to get ahead of the curve for the regulation and understand it. So they asked me to read it and give them a white paper on it and a brief education. That regulation was Basel II. And so I read it and I honestly fell in love with it. The concept of operational risk, the failure of people, process, systems, and external factors really kind of spoke to me. The credit risk, market risk, quantification, the loss distribution approach, all of those things in Basel II really spoke to me and helped me to build more curiosity around it. And so
Well,
that's
what
it
spoke
going
to you
deep.
the most about it?
The ability to be very diverse in what you're looking at. So operational risk is not a one trick pony. You have to look at the people, the process, the systems, and external activities.
So you're
All of
talking about
those,
financial institutions. They have to look at all
yes,
of this. Of course.
yes,
That's like a
for operational risk specifically.
yeah.
And then you look at credit risk and market risk and all of those different risks. But operational risk is the one that is more expansive and that impacts people more because if you fail to do your job correctly because you didn't follow the standard operating procedure, then that's a failure in operational risk.
Mhm.
You
What are some good classic examples for our audience to really understand, like, operational risk?
Sure, sure. When you get your statement and the statement is not providing you all the information that it's supposed to, that's a basic one. Some of the other ones, when you go to an ATM and your card doesn't work, that's an issue as well. And those are small issues that impact people on a daily basis.
These just seem like errors, but you're calling it operational risk.
Yes, because it's the failure associated with people,
Yeah,
process systems, and technology. So when you go to that ATM and put your card in there, it's deemed a failure in your eyes and also in the eyes of the company because the machine didn't do what it was supposed to do.
got it. And what's the trickle down effect of this with
A
financial
trickle down effect
institutions?
is you're looking at it from one person's perspective, but this could be a systemic problem within the whole network, ATM network. And so just because you experience it and see it from your perspective, there could be 150 people experiencing in the same problem at the same time. And so from the financial services perspective, they've just lost an opportunity to charge some type of fee associated with the ATM or just give you your services.
Right. Got it. Totally got it. So, what was the thing? So, thank you for all that whole background. And,
Oh, no
it's
problem.
fascinating that you've been curious in this particular sector. And, now you're helping financial institutions navigate and be ahead of the curve of black swan events, right? What caused you to go in this particular area? What were the questions that you asked
Hmm.
that caused you to start going, there's something that needs to be done here that's not being done? What was
When I
happening?
started, when I s it wasn't necessarily a aha moment, it was actually slow iterative. One thing led to another, which led to another, which led to another, which put me on a path to find and ask more questions about risk. Understanding what risk is, how you define it, how you experience it, both and from a financial perspective, as well as from an everyday perspective and then trying to make that real to yourself. So that's kind of where I started is really trying to make it not just financial services, but everyday occurrence that I could see and then record, research, monitor, manage, and quantify.
Got it. Well, give me so it was iterative and you kept seeing this, but one day you said, that's it, I'm going to do something about it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that was
What were these things that you were seeing that's the status quo that it's like most people probably think it's already being handled?
yes. One thing that really got me was the risk heat map. I know a lot of people use it, and there's been controversy about it, but,
Now tell me what that
um
is.
what it is taking the 2 factors that we talked about earlier, likelihood and impact, and putting them on a chart and putting numbers for each aspect of the item. And that's really identified in a heat map where the hotter it gets, the more risk it is. So it turns red and the number goes up from 0 to 5. Let's say that's the top. 5 is the highest risk in the red. 0 is green and no risk. So when you look at the heat map, you think that a 5 impact and a 5 severity or likelihood would give you something that is major risk because you have 2 things that are highly impactful quantitatively. But logically, what happens all of the time and that's catastrophic? Nothing. That's like saying, Hurricane Hugo, I'm dating myself. Hurricane Hugo happened every day. It didn't. And so that's the disconnect between the logic and the mathematics. The mathematics will guide you down that path, but the logic tells you that's not really feasible. But we get trapped in the mathematics because it is supposedly the way to do things. But math can guide you down the wrong path if you're asking and looking at it the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some catastrophes that have happened in your world because of that?
Actually, every catastrophe that you can think of that's happened in the organizations today, because everybody is using likelihood and impact and using these heat maps in that manner. So they're blind to everything else that goes around them, such as risk contagion, risk correlation, risk amplification. Those things aren't a mechanism within that paradigm of likelihood and impact. So you miss it.
So the real estate crash of 2008, the Great Recession, these particular events, the Silicon Valley one that we spoke about in
Yes.
the
Mhm.
yes.
So
And so
all of those are issues around how risk has been identified and how risk interacts, or different types of risk interact with each other to become more amplified than the single risk together.
okay, that sounds like it's a mic drop moment, but I want to understand it. It was a very impactful statement. Say that again and expand on it for me.
Sure. Expanding on that is to understand that if you have two isolated events and you put them together, 1 and 1 sometimes does not mean 2. 1 and 1 sometimes mean 13, depending on how impactful it is. So one can actually aggravate and impact the other one in a greater way to make both of them worse. It's kind of the perfect storm.
So thank you for that. Okay, I get it. So if we have this mathematical logic that's been being used, right, for
Mhm.
such a period of time, and it's really not that workable. It seems to be very reactive and it seems to be trying to put something into some predictive model that's really not been predictive. Why has it been continued to be used? Did it work at some point? like
Yes, it did work at some point, but, the risks got more complex, the questions got more complex, and the issues got more complex as well. So when you have that evolution of risk and your product or your tool doesn't evolve with it, then what happens is you get trapped. And the thing about the likelihood and impact, methodology is that it is pretty simple. And it does work to give you an understanding of what could be happening, but you can't rely on it totally. It should be used to give you just a quick view and an understanding and a curiosity to go further. It's not the begin all and end all of your risk management and your focus.
I get it. I get it. So people have this happens all over in so many organizations, right? They take
Yes,
something like that and they want to put it on an automatic and reduce it to the, irreducible minimum and not really think with the tools and the data. And that you're saying that was never the intention of it.
exactly.
Got it. I got it. So knowing that people want to put things on automatic and knowing that they, want to put it down to the irreducible minimum, you decided to do something about that.
Yes. When I decided back in, it was like 2023, I was doing some analysis on some risks that I had identified in an organization that I was supporting. And then they were telling me that, okay, we want you to use this tool, which I said, okay, I'm used to the tool. But I guess I just got to a point and I said, you know what? I'm just tired of this
So you
because
did
it's
point. You
happening.
did have an inflection point. You were like, "That's it."
Yes, yeah, and
Yeah.
that was kind of the, "Okay, I'm tired of this. This has
Yeah.
gotta go." But it was a slow build up until that point because I drank the Kool-Aid too. I basically, fell in line and said, "Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. If that's what they want, that's what I'm gonna give them."
This is the way
But
we've always done it. This is yeah.
exactly. And then I
And
just said, okay, you know what? There's a better way. And we know there's a better way. I'm not going to say that no one knows that there's a better way. There's a lot of people out there that know it's a better way and they do workarounds. So they may have one one version for the management team and executives and another version for themselves that they've worked around, but it's their own methodology, it's their own way of doing things, and it's not standardized. So they can't present it to management to say, this is how I came to my conclusion, because they're going to ask, how did you get there? And if
I
you say my own little thing that I created in my backyard, they're going to say, yeah, okay, next.
totally get it. Yeah, it's not standard. It's not probably not,
Yeah,
not regulated, anything like that. So they people
exactly.
have had to do workarounds because they've seen the flaws in this, but there's been nothing to fix that in the industry. And you said things have gotten more sophisticated, right? So the risks
Yes.
get more
Hmm.
sophisticated, but the the detection has not increased in that sophistication.
Exactly.
So how were you able to fix that? What did you do?
I actually looked at it from the perspective of what did we know, what did we see, and did we have the tool to represent it? We saw it, we knew it, we didn't have the tool. So now you have to go and say, okay, how do I make this tool and what are the components of this tool? And what I did is I looked at past events, knowing that, the past doesn't represent the future, but it gives you an indication of what could happen. And when you see this happening all the time, the same root causes, you tend to say, well, at least I can build something to resolve this root cause if it happens again. And that's what I did. I looked at how risk was being amplified, how risk was correlated and how risk compounded over a period of time. And I said to myself, okay, that's a factor that needs to be identified and a tool that needs to be used to give more information about it.
Got
Uh,
it.
and then you mentioned Black Swan, which
Yes.
everybody is talking about, and that is the situation where you have a risk event which is highly impactful, but it's not very likely. So that's the components of those two things. So if you think about it from that likelihood chart that I was talking to you about, the heat map,
Yeah.
it ranks low on the heat map as a low risk. But we know black swans are very impactful and very high risk.
Very high risk. And so
Yes.
for our audience, what is a black swan?
A black swan is an event that happens that is highly impactful, but not likely to happen or has a low likelihood of happening. But when it does happen, it's a major catastrophe.
Right.
Uh, so you can't turn a blind eye to it. And that's what a lot of people do is they turn a blind eye knowing that the catastrophe is going to happen. They just don't prepare because they feel that they haven't seen it. It's not going to happen, even though the likelihood is there.
Yeah, they kind of bury their head in the sand, right?
Yeah. And
Yes.
so there are two paradigms to it, or two kind of continuums. One area is you do nothing and just hope. The other area is you try to build a fortress and you spend a lot of money for no reason. You got to have a balance in between to prepare, but prepare in a way that is cost effective, that is conscious around the risk, and that protects your assets.
Yes. And so tell me about Firm Tech. Tell our audience about Firm Tech and what do you do for financial institutions?
Sure.
And where are they
Um,
most impacted by this? And what happens to them if they can't predict like they need to?
Sure. So FirmTech is a software as a service company. We focused on providing software to financial service organizations. And that software is specifically geared towards the quantification of risk using a new methodology that I developed a couple of years ago in doing some of the research and analysis of the past. I developed a methodology that expands the existing likelihood and impact in a way that is backwards compatible. So you don't throw away everything that you did in the past,
Okay.
but it's taking you forward. And that's the key. You can't go and build a brand new process and think you're going to forget all the data, all the processes, all the impact that was created for the systems that you did in the past. You have to be able to pull that forward. So that's why I kept likelihood and impact. But the two extra factors are predictability and compounding. Predictability goes to the black swan event. Is it predictable or not? And then compounding goes to the risk factors that amplify over time or compound or you experience risk contagion. So those are the two factors that I found were very important. But when you put them all together as a system and a composite score, you get something that is different than the likelihood and the severity. What you get is you turn the risk score into a risk behavior, which is very
Mm.
important. So risk scoring is the likelihood and severity. So you look at it and you say, my risk is, 5 for impact, 5 for likelihood, 5 times 5 is 25. I have a high risk because it's scored 25. And that's how they have spoken about risk throughout, the past couple of years
Tell me
is
how much
using
at
that.
risk you are, 1 to 10, which number would be the
Exactly.
highest? Yes.
Exactly.
But
But
but there are variables, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
there are variables. And so what I've done is I've used the predictability, the likelihood, the compounding, and the severity in a manner where I transform it from numeric to more behavioral. And then you speak about the risk from the behaviors that it actually shows or that you experience with that risk event.
Yeah.
For for instance, you have compounding. If compounding is high, then what happens is you have a systemic risk because it's building and it's hitting the system widely.
What do you mean by
So
it's compounding is high?
compounding meaning the variable that I have in my methodology. Remember I said we have compounding and predictability. So
Yes,
that
okay.
measure of compounding is telling you that you have either an isolated risk or a systemic risk.
Got it.
The likelihood, of course, tells you how likely it is to happen. So that tells you, am I going to be blindsided? The predictability tells you, okay, can I say around when this may happen? Because
Mm.
the likelihood tells you that it may happen, but it didn't tell you when.
Interesting.
Forecasting tells you more about when because you look at leading indicators, and those leading indicators can give you an understanding of it's about to happen, not it may or may not happen, which are two different questions, but they have very close similarities to each other as far as the
Interesting.
likelihood and the predictability.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then
Go ahead.
finally, you have the severity, which is the impact. If it's high severity, then it's going to be very impactful. So you could say that a risk is a systemic risk that is highly impactful that could blindside you.
Okay.
And I have not given you one number, but you know to be concerned.
Interesting. It's fascinating to me. And this is a clear B2B model. I mean, you're specifically targeting, I think it's community banks, credit
Yeah.
unions,
Mhm.
and mid-market financial institutions. And what are those? They hold like it's like a billion to 10 billion in assets, right?
Yes. Well, the small banks are 1 billion and less. The community banks are 1 billion to 10 billion. The regional banks are 10 billion to roughly 250, and then the uh, the larger banks is 250 and up, and then the GSIPs is kind of 250. Well, really 700 with the new regulation that's come out. So GSIPs are 700 billion and above.
Wow. And I know your platform is deeply rooted in deep tech and AI.
Yes, yes, I have. I just counted because of the new model risk regulation, and I have 150 AI quantitative methods, machine learning methods, and financial methods around quantitative finance.
Wow, incredible. Well, I know that you're having a lot of initial interest and success. You've gotten on Gartner's radar and you've been talking to financial institutions and they're very interested in this. Where do you see firm tech going?
I see firm tech kind of leading the way to helping people to ask questions about risk management a little more and a little deeper. I think we're just scratching the surface of what we can do and the changes that we can make if we're open to the changes. And
Yeah.
that's the key is being a change agent, being open to the changes and being able to facilitate that change throughout.
Fantastic. I love this. Well, Dr. Jeffrey, what do you do on your copious free time when you're not building firm tech?
I have I have some children. I have actually 4 daughters,
Wow. You're a
and
girl
they are
dad. Go
ages
girl dad.
yay!
Yay.
Ages 14, 15, actually, and now ages 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Fantastic. Wow. You are in teenage land. I feel for you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm on my 2nd marriage, so my wife had 2 children, 2 girls, and I had 2 girls, and when we came together, it was like the Brady Bunch. It was just kind of, 15, 16, 17, and 18.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Well, I think girl dads are special. Dr. Jeffrey, how do people get a hold of you?
I am on LinkedIn. Get a hold of through LinkedIn. You can send me an email. My email is out there. You can go to my website, firmtech.com, FFERMTech.com.
Fantastic. And you'll be hearing more of Dr. Jeffrey in the near future, being called on by the media with his expertise about Black Swan events and other things that are happening. So, Dr. Jeffrey, before we end off today, and first of all, thank you for being curious. Thank you for doing
Thank
what
you.
you're doing. And
You
thank you
too.
for figuring out how to make a risk management methodology go beyond the traditional way it's been being done to have a better, gosh, confidence rate in what's
Yes.
happening and help people because their funds are in the banks, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you for
Exactly.
doing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
What is food for thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think if anything, don't be too stuck in the status quo. Be able to be curious, be able to go out there and be creative and dream big because without dreaming, you won't have a vision and you won't have a way to get forward. And I dreamed and I had a vision and I went forward.
It's fantastic, and that's what makes you you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jeffrey.
Thank you.
That's a wrap, everyone. If you learned something today, I know you did. Go tell someone about this podcast and tell people to go dream big and disrupt their markets, just like Dr. Jeffrey. Thanks for listening to Disruption Interruption, where we transform lives, we change consumer behavior, we alter economics, right, Dr. Jeffrey?
Yes.
And
Yes,
we
we do.
never accept the status quo. Ciao for now.
Because we live in a highly litigious society, with America being one of the top litigious countries in the world, here's our legal disclaimer. This information is not intended to be a substitute for professional public relations or legal advice. Do not disregard seeking professional legal, healthcare, or financial advice, or delay seeking professional PR or legal advice because of something you have heard here. Contact an attorney to obtain advice on any particular legal situation or problem. Use of this podcast or our website or any of its social media or email links do not create an agency-client relationship between Johto PR and the user.